I'm gonna get real serious real quick.
All right, go get serious.
I have one question for you, brother.
Okay.
We have one question. Who is God? YouTube, welcome back to Never Struggle Again, a series where we help you level up. I don't want to speak too much for you, but I do want to speak on just what you've done for me in my life as a friend. I think we can all grow. There's always room for growth, and it's important for us to be around those people who can expose those weaknesses so we can be vulnerable to them, right? But we have to be vulnerable. So it has to be somebody who you care about, somebody who you feel like you have a strong connection with, and he's one of them. So
Yeah, sure. So obviously we're going to come from a very similar perspective, but I might have some new takes on things because obviously I'm coming from more of like a spiritual kind of point of view, where he's coming from more of like a career-based personal development.
what do you think about the people who want to have integrity but don't necessarily have the same amount of faith? Because I feel like a lot of integrity is faith.
You know, I mean, we could go off on a huge tangent on this based off of kind of the wording you use. That's like, why is integrity important? And does it only happen in situations of faith? But I feel like all of us have this innate sense of right and wrong inside of us. You know what I'm saying? When you're a little kid, your parents didn't have to teach you that stealing was wrong. The very first cookie you took out of the cookie jar, you went and you hid it, and then you lied and covered up with a lie. I didn't take the cookie, you know what I'm saying? Our parents didn't give us that first consequence or teach us that stealing is wrong yet. We had that built inside of us. So I feel like a lot of people kind of suppress the right and wrong in integrity situations when there is nobody watching. Oh, I can get away with it. And I'm a huge culprit of this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I used to be the type of person, no one's ever gonna know. It's not really that big of a deal. I can just take this, do that, and think that I could get away with it. And you know, I did get away with it. There was no earthly consequence in a lot of situations, but now I come from a perspective that I'm gonna have to answer to all those actions that I took, and I'm afraid of God, like I said.
So how would you suggest somebody who isn't necessarily a Christian, how would you suggest they maybe seek that information about integrity and everything, you know, that comes with that? Let's say because you know, you could obviously answer that and say it's in the Bible, right? Like it's in the Bible. But for somebody who's not necessarily a believer already, if they hear that answer, they'll probably just turn the cheek, you know? So what would you say to like kind of open somebody up to that maybe? Or to just give them the same answer, but let's say, I guess you could say without pointing directly to the book, if that makes sense.
So I was kind of talking to you about this before. The society that we live in, when it comes to what we see on social media and people making money in different areas, it's almost like a dog-eat-dog kind of world, you know what I'm saying? You got all this competition around you, and you know, unfortunately, sometimes you feel compelled that you got to step on somebody else in order to level up, you know what I'm saying? Where there is no path of honesty, you know? I know the people who know this person, when I quote this, they're gonna know who I'm talking about, but I was listening to a guy and he said, if there's a basketball game, if you know this quote already, you already know who I'm talking about. There's a basketball game, winner takes 10,000, but there's no referee. How many people are gonna blur the lines and cheat? A lot, you know what I'm saying? How much more do you think that people in the government and people that control businesses do the same thing? I think that's because they don't have that same kind of like fear of God. You know what I'm saying? They're like, I can get away with this. There's no consequence to it. And like I said, there might not be an earthly consequence to it, but I have a full faith that we're gonna have to answer to all our actions that we do on this earth.
Because they see it as they're just getting away with it, and I mean, when they die, they don't
Yeah.
they don't see anything else after. But
Right.
it's like, if you look at the other way, if you're acting this way in this lifetime, and when this life ends, you still have somebody else that you have to answer to.
Yeah, right. And I'd say that's the point right there that is missing from a lot of people that don't have that faith. They're like, well, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? So I would say, instead of trying to convince them using that, I would say just question, you know, why is there an innate sense inside of me of morality saying that I shouldn't do things even when no one is looking? Because if we're all on the playing field of survival of the fittest, you know, the lion doesn't feel guilty about killing the gazelle. You know what I'm saying? He just eats, right? And I come from a perspective that we're not just animals. We're something a little bit more than that. We have morality. You know, taking someone else's gazelle when it's not rightfully ours, there's an innate sense of guilt that kind of follows that. And where does that come from? If it was just survival of the fittest, it's right for me to take that. You know what I'm saying? It's whatever's going to further me in life.
Yeah.
But the fact that after I do steal something, lie, cheat, whatever it is, and I feel a little kind of conviction about that, a little guilt behind that, maybe I'm not just an animal. For the most part, I've been very mindful of my integrity in every decision I've made with my career, and I've not missed out. I don't feel like, oh, if I would have made this decision, I could have made more money or whatever, right? I think that actual true success comes with integrity, because the people that surround you is more important than the money that's in your bank. Some people think that the dog-eat-dog type of world, you gotta step on other people, you gotta cheat, cut corners, and you gotta do all these things, is the only way to success, or the quick way to success, right? Somewhere in Proverbs it talks about that the fool desires wealth without work, and the wise man gains it over time. So I think that that's what God's been teaching me, is to take this step by step and to do it the right way. So I'm building good foundation. I'm surrounding myself with other people that I trust, because they can trust me, because they know the way that I live and the decisions that I make.
You know what? I'm gonna get real serious real quick.
All right, go get serious.
I have one question for you, brother.
Okay.
We have one question. Who is God?
Okay, all right. So we have like 2 hours to answer this.
Yeah.
Or, okay, wait, what? Okay, I don't know if I can answer that like that for you.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, I mean,
let's be more specific.
I would say, okay, so I'll tell you how I look at God, and you can tell me how you look at God, and we can like see where we go from there.
Sure.
So the way I see God is, I believe that Jesus died on the cross. Absolutely. I believe a lot of the stuff in the Bible happened. There's still a part of me that is skeptical, but I think that's just because I haven't asked enough questions.
Yeah.
And I think it all comes with asking the right questions. And if you dig deep down in your heart, you will know exactly what questions to ask, and you're going to get the answers if you're actually looking.
So you know all those kids that have dreams of, you know, being in a band or being in the NBA or whatever, right? But they never actually put the work in. They'll be like, I probably would have never went anyway, so maybe it's a good thing I never put in the work. But you'll never know unless you actually take that risk and actually put in that work. You know what I'm saying? At least if you get to the NBA draft and you don't get drafted, you can walk away proud saying, I put in that work and actually attempted to get where I was trying to go. A lot of people with their faith, what they miss out on is they do that exact same thing. They say, God's probably not real. The stories in the Bible probably aren't reliable. There's probably not answers to any of these questions. Seems as though it's just so ambient and God I can't understand it. There is answers to all of these questions, but you have to come into it with a very open-minded, you know what I'm saying? You can't come in already thinking you know the answer. You're like, all right, well, here's my question, and I'm gonna actually sit back and consider what you have to say. If it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't make sense to me, but if it makes sense to me, well, shoot, I'm going to ask some more questions.
I think half of it has to do with being open-minded, and half of it has to do with, like we said, asking the right questions. Because, if you don't have open-mindedness, even if you are asking the right questions, you're still going to block those questions away. It's like to be able to just grow in life in general, you need to know how to listen and what direction to go so you can learn. So if you don't know what questions to ask, then you're going to kind of just be in a loop. And if you don't know how to listen, then you're not going to know how to take in the information in the first place. Where can we lead off that we haven't touched up on?
The whole thing about just asking questions is huge, because in my testimony video, that's kind of what I did, is I kept asking questions. I was that person who instead just assumed there was no answers, and so I never pursued it. I'm like, nah, I was hungry for the truth. And that's the beautiful thing is Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus is claiming to be the truth, right? So if I'm looking for the truth and it leads me in a direction that isn't Jesus, I was like, wait, maybe he wasn't telling the truth.
So what do you think about the people who say that the Bible was man-made? Because so this was one of my first rebuttals. This was one of my first rebuttals. How do you know that the Bible is true if it's man-made, especially if it was made over hundreds of years of time and by different people? They could easily slip in some bias and say that it was the word. Yeah. So how do you know for a fact that book is fact?
So first of all, everyone out there listening to this is going to be a video that I'm going to make. So I'm going to make it in depth and to really touch on this. So I don't have any materials in front of me to explain it very in-depthly, but I can give kind of a broad answer to that. So the Bible, that because it's written by man, makes it even more believable to me. And here's why. So if somebody is embellishing or making up lies about something, they're going to tell you all the good things about what they did. So if I'm telling you a story and I'm a typical, guy, I'll be like, yeah, man, I caught this fish and it was this big. And you know how that goes. It was actually this big. You know what I'm saying? You embellish it, make things better, make yourself seem like a hero.
More glamorous.
But if you look at the authors who wrote about themselves in the story, they're brutally honest about how terrible of people they were and the mistakes that they made and the sins that they committed and how that they needed Jesus.
But how does that solidify the fact that it's true?
If
like,
I told
at the end of the day, it could all be planned out, like how they structured. Like, okay, if I'm completely honest about myself, they're gonna believe me no matter what I say. Does that make sense?
So the answer to why is the Bible a reliable thing is there's 10 plus solid reasons to believe it. That was just more of like a logical thing, right? There's an aspect to the prophecies that are in it where all the books are intertwined and connected, where the authors did not have communication with each other, both because of language barrier, distance barrier, and thousands of years apart from each other being written, where they're predicting things to a T with 100% accuracy. And a lot of these people that wrote the Bible are just like laymen. They weren't scholars. They weren't the most intelligent people of the time. They were shepherds, tax collectors, fishermen, but somehow they were able to predict future events thousands of years previous to a T, which are historical, which, I'm speaking very ambiently right now, but if I had my materials in front of me, I could show you how historically they predicted these things to a T. And it's like, whoa. I listened to a podcast once talking about how the Bible is God in his essence or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Imagine it being a lion behind a cage, right? And now I'm trying to defend the lion from outside the cage, telling you that the lion's real and dangerous and stay away from it or whatever, right? But instead what I should do is just let the lion out of the cage and let him defend itself. So if you are curious, whether the Bible is true or not, the very first thing you should do is open it up and actually start reading it. You know what I'm saying? So what a lot of people do when they're skeptical about it is they go to somebody who knows the Bible and they start asking them questions, which is a good place to start. But you can find out for yourself. You know what I'm saying? I always like to say, I don't have all the answers, but I know somebody who does. Let me just introduce you to him. You know what I'm saying? So anybody out there, if you're really curious to know if the Bible's true or not, there are, actual logical reasons to argue that it is. But the best thing you can do is actually just open it up and read it for yourself.
It's just crazy how people are so closed-minded nowadays, bro. It. I don't know. I grew up in this, so it kind of just seems like it's always been like this, but it doesn't seem like it was always like this. People are so hostile and unreceptive to love, and that's what God is. It's love.
God is love. Yeah. I want to touch on something too. So I'm gonna look deeply into the camera. Whoever you are listening to this, as a Christian, I know that a lot of people have been hurt by their Christians, or they see hypocrisy within the church and all these other things. But I want to tell you that I love you. I don't know who you are, but I do love you. And now that's very interesting. How can you love somebody who you've never met before, right? And I love you. Doesn't matter what your political stance is, doesn't matter what your race is, your background, your upbringing, doesn't matter your gender, doesn't matter, right? But here's the distinction that I do want to make, is that if you see somebody who you love and they're blindly walking towards a danger, you're not just gonna pat them on the back and say, good job, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. If you know that they're heading in a direction of danger, you're gonna intervene and be like, hey,
let them know.
Where you're going right now is a dangerous path, and because I love you, I'm not going to allow you to continue down that path. I want to do what I can to veer you away from that path. Now, I think that perspective is lost within a lot of Christian community because they come off very judgmental and say that are self-righteous, that I'm better than you. But that's never supposed to be the perspective.
That's what it seems like. It seems like a lot of people think that Christians are people who think that they're better than everybody else and that they judge people behind closed doors and that they think they're more righteous. Yeah. But stepping into the church scene, man, I'll tell you from my firsthand experience, like, it really is the complete opposite. I got baptized like 4 months ago. I think I was going to church for like 2 months. Honestly, never thought I would get baptized, but it just, honestly, they brought it up. And okay, so just like how we said, having an open ear or having just an open mind in general, I was thinking about it like this. I can say no for no reason, or I can just get baptized. Regardless if it works or not, or if God is real or not, whatever you want, like, regardless, the purpose and the resemblance behind it is a positive way to symbolize new birth or rebirth.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, my perspective on baptism is a little bit different than that, because I believe that there's an extreme importance behind baptism. That it's not just like, you might as well. It's like,
well, that's why I'm being honest. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, why I made the decision,
right.
I was might as well. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, just to conclude on kind of the two main thoughts that I brought up about just being curious in a good way, is that I was a skeptic. You know, I like to know that the hard truth, the answers. I don't like to just think or follow or believe something just because it makes me feel comfortable. You know, I want to actually know the truth. You know what I'm saying? So I love conspiracies, because it's like, what's really going on here? Now, a lot of those things aren't true or not, but I do like to get behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? So being a skeptic isn't wrong, but when you ask a genuine question, you should want a genuine response, right? So if you're asking questions like, such as like, why does God allow suffering in this world? Is the Bible reliable? Can we be certain in where we came from, creation? And a lot of the stories in the Bible, they seem embellished. You know what I'm saying? You asking all these questions were fantastic questions. But if you're going to ask them, come from the perspective of, all right, I'm going to actually listen to the answer. If it makes sense to me, it makes sense to me. If it doesn't, it doesn't. See, a lot of people, they just ask those questions.
They ask and they already have an answer in their head.
They have their answer in their head.
Yeah.
They already have things that they're going to interrupt you with and fire off. It's like,
wow, that is, that, bro, you don't know how many times I've seen that. Not even like in that scenario, but like in other scenarios with just like people in general. People, like, they'll come to you with a question, or like come to you with a statement waiting for a response, but they already have what they're gonna say in, like, locked in their head, and they're just waiting for you to respond so they can fire back at you. I think a good way to put it is, if you're genuinely curious about something, use your communication as a tool instead of a weapon. So unload your gun, throw it in the bushes, grab a hammer.
Grab the hammer.
Grab a hammer.
Yeah, so conclusion, find someone that you trust and is pretty knowledgeable about these things, but then also open up the word yourself. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I can introduce you to somebody who does, you know what I'm saying? All those like specific questions is exactly what I created my YouTube channel for, is like I plan on, you know, actually diving into those things and answering them. But I'm gonna stay on topic about those things and cover it pretty in-depthly. So follow my channel. It's just Sheep Factor, SHEEPFACTOR, Sheep Factor. And I'm going to be going through those things topic by topic. And so if that's interesting to you, go ahead, follow, like, subscribe, hit that bell.
So main question of today was, who is God? Just off the top of the dome, I'm curious to see how you would answer this. I know you don't have all the answers. None of us do. If you were to conclude that with a question from your personal answer, who would you say God is to you?
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I think, so a lot of people say, well, God is us or whatever, right? Now, that's a little skewed from like what God meant by created in his image, because in Genesis it says we are created in his image. You know what I'm saying? What does that mean? It means that we're creative, right? We love, we have emotions, we have a conscience. We have a desire to learn. We're curious. We want to explore. You know, we're about to go to Mars. That's fantastic. That's awesome.
Bro, I can't
you know what I'm saying?
You getting a ticket?
We're getting a ticket, yeah.
You getting a ticket?
I'm getting the $1 million ticket, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that's what he means by creating his image, is we share all those traits. And all those traits can be very useful and good things. But, you know, so I think if you really want to understand who God is, there's a little bit that you can look at yourself and see those things, but we also have a lot of fallibility and a lot of sin and a lot of those things where God's not those things. So if you really want to know his will and know how he differs from us in those ways, read his word again, because he explains very vividly who he is. You know, he's never meant to be the person that's just the guy in the sky that we don't really understand is like, well, maybe someday I'll understand. No, he did give us direction in an autobiography about himself. That is the Holy Bible, that explains to you who he is, what his will is, and how we can fulfill our lives here on earth. You know, it's the more you read it, the less you're confused.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. The more you read it, the more you open your mind up, and the deeper your understanding of it gets. 100%. Bro, that was deep. Yeah. I really like that answer. I think you answered that well. I think I'm going to end this off here. Go mess with my guy, Brandon, man. He's really good people. I look at these guys as family. They're going to be around. We're going to be around. Tampa Bay, NSA. Yeah, man.
We don't play.
No,
don't put that in there.
Okay.
What is going on here?
Bro, I have no idea.
You get some bagpipes going on.
What is that, bro? I can't even tell. What? Don't record your podcast at college apartments, man. Okay, but yeah, I'm going to close it off, man. NSA, we the gang. Never struggle again. Fortify your mind to become bulletproof. Subscribe or your mom's a hoe. I'm going to see you guys next week. We out!